Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Our guest today is one of the key actors of the very volatile situation in the Kurdish region of Iraq. A referendum on independence was held back in September and resulted in a massive yes vote. Since then, the central government has taken back control of so-called disputed areas between Baghdad and the Kurds. The Kurdish regional authorities under President Masoud Barzani have accused some Kurdish factions of betraying them by allowing the government troops to seize those areas, especially the oil-rich town of Kirkuk. They point the finger especially at one man. This man is called Bafڵ Taڵەbانی. He is the son of the recently deceased former Iraqi President Jalal Talabani, and he joins us from Suleimaniye in Iraqi Kurdistan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Mr. Taڵەbانی, the Barzani administration, its allies, have claims that you've allowed the troops from the central government to take control of Kirkuk and that you cut a deal with the central government of Baghdad and with neighboring Iran. What is your answer to those very serious accusations?
I completely and flat out reject these baseless and frankly quite disgusting accusations. Everything that has happened until now has been the result of a short-sighted policy by the Kurdish leadership. And after such a tragedy, I expected the Kurds to unite and to come forward with a solid single voice, a united voice. But unfortunately, like so many times before, rather than doing this, the different Kurdish factions have decided to blame each other, to cause baseless accusations on each other, and divert the attention of the international community from the real problem.
But Mr. Taڵەbانی, they're saying that you indeed order your troops not to fight against the central government, the Shia militias, because there was a deal with Iran and especially with Qasem Soleimani, the general who's in charge of the elite forces of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Those, again, are accusations that are out there.
They are out there. It's unfortunate they are out there. And I think, frankly, it's a case of those really responsible for this tragedy trying to put blame somewhere else. I can explain to you what happened in Kirkuk the other night. Our Peshmerga forces are well known for their defense of Kirkuk over the previous years. We have lost our bravest commanders in Peshmerga defending Kirkuk from every kind of threat. This time we were faced with insurmountable odds and a vastly superior enemy, superior in firepower. Our military leaders on the ground, Sheikh Ja'far, etc., decided to make a tactical withdrawal after a lot of fighting, which has cost us almost 100 men and dozens of wounded. This is the truth of the matter. Rather than have many thousand Peshmerga casualties, rather than fighting spread to inside Kirkuk, rather than to be faced with massive collateral damage and loss of civilian life, our Peshmerga commanders decided to retreat strategically from these areas, and I commend them for that.
So you're saying that you're not a traitor to the Kurdish cause, as some, even within your party, have accused you to be.
Those in my party that have accused me of such things, I turn it around and I accuse them of treachery. I accuse them of treachery. I would like an investigation carried out into this. I have asked for this officially. I want an investigation carried out onto the things that happened in Kirkuk. And at the same time, I call for another investigation. I call for an investigation on the Kurdish leaders that led us to this situation today. And I want them investigated thoroughly to see if they are fit to lead the Kurdish people.
You're obviously talking about Masoud Barzani. Before this referendum, there was a kind of unity. It was probably just a facade, as we're just witnessing right now. Do you think that by holding this referendum, he made a historic mistake?
I will not attack President Barzani in any way, shape or form. I will do nothing to try to reduce the impact of Kurdish unity. I'm sorry, Kurdish unity is absolutely paramount. I completely disregard baseless accusations. I refuse to wrestle in the mud like this. Kurds today need to be united more than ever. But we need to ask ourselves, how did we come here? The referendum was a question that needed to be asked, but the referendum was never the end goal. The end goal was the rights of the Kurdish people. And at the very last days, the United States, Brett McGurk, Frank Baker came with a proposal that would have protected us, a proposal that guaranteed us the rights to do a referendum in 2 years if we had tried to negotiate with Baghdad. Unfortunately, the Kurdish leaders, and I am not singling out Mr. Barzani, I'm sorry, I refuse to be dragged into this. The Kurdish leaders did not take this historic
This was a mistake.
Which
this
from
was
where I
the
was
mistake.
sitting was a change in policy. This was a colossal mistake. This was a colossal mistake. And even in the fighting in Kirkuk, there was an opportunity. Even then, as the forces were heading towards Kirkuk, Prime Minister Abadi, His Excellency, reached out to us, and we reached an honourable compromise. And if you wish, I can explain this compromise to you.
If you can't, briefly, more or less, what was the deal offered by the Iraqi Prime Minister?
I will. I will. After a day of negotiation, we came up with the following proposal. We came up with a proposal that rather than Iraqi troops unilaterally return to K1 military base, that K1 military base would become a hub for the coalition against ISIS. It was to be full of the United States troops, of British troops, and other troops in the coalition, as well as conventional Iraqi troops. This single thing would have prevented the catastrophe that has befallen Kirkuk. This is the only deal I have supported. I have a document here signed by 38 out of 50 of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan leadership supporting this proposal. It was an honourable compromise. Nobody would have lost. We would have kept Kirkuk, and this tragedy that has befallen the Kurdish people would not have taken place. But unfortunately, again, the leaders in Kurdistan were frankly unable to decide the correct course.
Sir, you're saying there was a better deal. What are the intentions of the Prime Minister? Obviously, he said that he wants to avoid clashes, although they're still happening. Do you think he wants really to grant autonomy and eventually independence, or, as he has said, independence is over?
I'm sorry, I do not know what His Excellency Prime Minister Abadi is thinking. The only thing I can tell you is that Prime Minister Abadi tried many times to reach out to us to make different agreements. And many of these agreements were not possible for us to take. But the final solution that the Americans had regarding the alternative agreement that we turned down was a historic mistake. And even then, under immense pressure from Iraq and from his own people, Prime Minister Abadi again reached out to us and offered us a solution to stop this trouble in Kirkuk. Unfortunately, the timing worked out in such a way that the Kurdish leadership was not able to agree to this in a quick enough time frame. I'm frankly tired of the PUK martyrs being disrespected like this. It's very easy for me to turn around and make accusations at others. I could very easily say, we lost 100 men in the defense of Kirkuk. I have dozens of wounded and missing in action. Whole swathes of Kurdistan were given up to the Iraqis without a shot being fired. If I made a deal with Baghdad, I'd like to know who those other forces made a deal with.
I mean, obviously, now that we see those divisions, it brings back memories from the mid-1980s when your party and the party of Masoud Barzani clashed violently. Are you fearing maybe a civil war between Kurdish factions now that all this bad blood is spilling out?
I always fear bloodshed. I always fear war.
Civil
I have
war.
experience of the military. It's not something I enjoy. I don't enjoy sending people. The way forward is not war. We have to work for unity. The Kurdish parties, the Kurdish people, now more than ever have to be united. This is why I will not respond directly to these false allegations in the Kurdish media and in the Kurdish press. They are beneath me. They are beneath the PUK. They are beneath our brave soldiers that fought bravely in the defense of Kirkuk. Our brave soldiers that for decades have spilt blood and have had martyrs defending the Kurdish people.
But does this mean that now you want to negotiate maybe an autonomy with Baghdad, and that independence is now not for the near future for Kurdistan?
The Kurdish people as a whole need to negotiate with Baghdad. We need to negotiate with Baghdad. We need to re-engage the international community. We need to re-engage the neighboring countries. And together, through dialogue and negotiation, we have to diffuse this problem that is spreading throughout all of Kurdistan and prevent an even greater tragedy.
Just one last question. Again, do you think that an independent Kurdistan is on the horizon, or that now, because of the situation, because of what is happening right now, it has to be shelved for several years, maybe now?
It is the dream of every Kurd for an independent Kurdistan. But an independent Kurdistan has to be worked for. We have to be in a position of strength for our negotiations. We have to be realistic with the expectations of our allies in the West. We have to think hard and long. We have to work and lobby for this. We have to plan for this. There are legal matters. There are military matters. There are many, many other matters. Every Kurd wants an independent Kurdistan. This will come at the right time. We will never stop working for it. We will all strive towards it. But the Kurds can't do what they're doing now. The Kurds have got to be united, and together, side by side, we have to face our enemies with diplomacy, under the protection of the law, and reach a compromise that eventually will take us to an independent Kurdistan.
Pavel Taڵەbانی, thank you very much for being with us from Soleimani in the Kurdish region of Iraq, and thank you for watching this exclusive interview here on France 24.